of our last meeting, Supervisor Wood and Supervisor Montasi. Thank you very much. Yep, you're on track when you're ready, okay?
Some of the business jets are so clean, because we're looking for higher cruise speed. What? They don't have the flaps and all the fancy equipment, short, thick.
So we're ready?
You're ready.
Okay.
That's what I'm trying to tell you.
There's a packet that was sent out to you yesterday. I know it was late to do an update to the agenda, so I provided hard copies for everybody here. The first thing I want to do is there's a resolution request to fill a position. Linda, who is the office specialist, is moving over to the sheriff's office. And I've gone through the personnel office and we'll be would like to bring someone on board to replace, not that you can replace, but to fill that position. So there's a resolution, well, there's information here, and I need the committee's approval, the notice of intent to fill a vacant position.
So good. Motion by Supervisor Montesi, seconded by Supervisor Stroud. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Item number 2.
Okay, in the packet I provided an organizational chart. I want to come back to that in a minute. In the interest of training the new person that's coming on board, I'd like to have the committee consider creating a temporary office specialist position. That position would run basically from the 17th of June to the 24th of June, and that would provide an overlap with Linda before she leaves. There's money in the budget to do that, because the person coming on is at a lower pay grade than Glenda, so that offsets.
Supervisor Simpson's motion, seconded by Supervisor Wood. Any discussion? Yes, Supervisor Leggett.
Will that be the same person? How does that work?
That's the person that's coming on board, yes. And then after Friday the 24th, we'll do another 426 that brings her on as
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Number 3.
Number 3 is a resolution request to allow the department to submit an application under the CFA process. We're still trying to determine all the different projects in there, or under what categories it would be submitted. The application is due the 29th of July. Been in talk with the First Wilderness Corridor communities, and we're following through on plan implementation. If there's a local project as part of the application, those communities know they have to provide the matching funds that are required. So we're still in the process of putting a work program together, but I'd like a resolution to authorize submission of the application.
Can we have a motion to that effect? Motion by Supervisor McDonald, supervised by Supervisor Stroud. Any discussion? Yes.
Thanks. I know I'm not on the committee, I'm sorry guys. But the reason I'm just popping in is because I was at one of the EDC meetings recently where a staff person or a contractor consultant, Wayne, was talking about what our county planning department was doing, and I felt like that was something that should have been brought to a committee. I know the timelines are tight, but if there's specific projects, I feel like they should be hashed out through the committee. And I think I saw somewhere, I can't find it right now, where it talks about, oh, here it is, on the agenda, making sure that the projects will be selected from the current First Wilderness Plan. And what she was discussing as something going into our grant application is not in the current First Wilderness Plan. So I feel uncomfortable having us ask for grant money for something that is not one of our current priorities.
Upgrades to the publicly owned infrastructure of the First Wilderness Corridor is one of the goals identified in the plan. And basically what we're looking at doing is taking that private investment, and right now they're looking at doing a 300-foot stub with a switch. If we were to use their money as the match, we can add 300 feet to that, do another switch and have a full siding that the county can then use. It's workable for us. If they go away, then we have a infrastructure that's on county-owned property that's been paid for by grant and by private funds that allows us to have a runaround siding at the Stony Creek branch. Whether that goes forward or not depends on a host of things. So, I mean, that's one of the projects that we're looking at. Again, we look at the plan that's been approved by the board, and we try to find projects that are ready to go, that can be done within 2 to 3 years, and include those in the application.
I mean, when I pulled up the plan for Stony Creek, one of the first items there is creating a connected walking trail, walkable biking trail. I mean, and I know that you've talked about it, Matt and I have talked about it, that is something that's possible. There are some logistical issues, but why wouldn't we use grant money to try to fix some of those issues and get us a connected trail?
Well, we currently have grant funding for that. We have grant funding for an 82-mile trail that's in the second phase of its design and layout. Once that design and layout is done, then we will submit for actual construction of the linkages that are necessary to complete that.
Right.
But it's in the process.
And you don't feel like we're at that point, and that I guess the other thing I feel uncomfortable about is that the county is spending our planning department's time to put together this grant application for a private. I mean, certainly we could be one of their sponsors, like submit a letter in support or something of their grant application.
They're not eligible to submit an application, only municipalities.
Is the town doing one?
No. Under the intermunicipal agreement, the county takes the lead on the implementation of the First Wilderness Program. I talked with the town supervisor, and he is in full support.
Sure, yeah.
Any further discussion? Can we call the question? All those in favor? Any, Supervisor Leggett?
So you're still looking for other
Frank
projects?
wants to say
Okay,
something.
okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Frank, did you,
Yeah, I would just, first off, I'd like to just note for the whole star that the name of the place is Stony Creek Ranch Resort, not Stony Brook. So if you could inform Maury that. Second of all,
Roads call it same interchange, right?
I don't know, are they?
I don't know what you're talking about. I can pass it on, someone wrote that.
That's not.
Thank you. You can always reach out to the specific report though, and let them know about that too. Sorry.
Anyhow.
any further
Second of all,
Go ahead.
no, I think this is a worthy project. I think it helps these people who invested $1.5 million purchasing this place. They're gonna invest probably $100 million in upgrading it. I think it's great for the town. I think this will help their operation. This is with the train, Saratoga North Creek Railroad, other options to utilize, to make the Stony Creek Ranch Resort more fully. You know, it's in my town, and as far as the town, there's a possibility that we would maybe make a grant application through the land department also. We've been looking at researching a water and sewer project for our hamlet, so that's a possibility, and we've made other applications. You know, nothing's stopping any other municipality.
Supervisor Simpson?
I agree with Supervisor Thomas. These projects are meant to enhance a part of the county that really there isn't a lot of structures there. There's not a lot of economic activity, and we need to support these areas. I happen to live, just north, and these projects are very vital for parts of the county that don't have constant stream of tourists. But it benefits the whole county.
Supervisor Sieber?
Will we be getting like a list of proposed projects or proposed topics that you're applying for under this grant?
Yes.
And when will that come?
Uh,
'Cause that's due the end of July.
Correct. I mean, I hope to have everything identified by the end of June, because it takes a while to put one of these together. Then what we do is we identify potential projects. I send that to the state and say, what would you consider? Because each year they have a different priority, different focus. And so I will send that to the state and they'll say, you know, they can't tell you yes or no, don't submit or not, but they would say something is either fully supported by the goals of the NOFA this year, the Notice of Funding Availability, or, you know, we really have to make a hard case as to why it should be included. I will say that the First Wilderness Corridor Plan is basically a model that Department of State has been very supportive of. They have asked us to go to other communities and talk about it, and the intermunicipal cooperation. They have fully supported the development of the plan, they funded it, and they are interested in funding projects that relate to the plan implementation.
So before we vote as a board in June, we'll know what grant funds you're applying for what project?
Well, I believe the board meeting is June 15th. And, you know, I'm gonna be very honest, I'm not gonna have a list by then. I can't. You know, I mean, we're still reaching out to some of the towns as to what we see as potential projects versus what they see. So normally what we do is we look for a funding total of about $500,000. And the state matches that, you know, it becomes $1 million project. So we have to make sure that the local sponsors have their matching funds or will commit to the matching funds, and we do that by letter. You know, it takes time to build the projects and make sure that they're doable and that they will support the plan.
So just one last question, if I may.
Right.
So you'll put this together, you'll find out the local matches, make sure those are all secured, but in terms of county resources, it sounds like there isn't a county dollar match, but there's certainly county time through your planning department that takes place to write these grants. Is there like I know, say with the occupancy tax, we pay the treasurer's office to manage that. Do you get, as part of that grant, money back to manage, like here you're creating a new position, but you know, where's the money coming back in to cover those costs?
Generally, in each of the grant programs, we have anywhere from $40,000 to $80,000 of staff support as part of the implementation process. And it's a 3 to 4 year implementation process, so it spreads out over the different staffing in the office. And so now with multiple grants, we have 8 or 9 of these going on right now. Some we're phasing out, 3 of them are phasing out this month. So, but you know, that's how we provide our matching, our revenue for the department for staffing is through those grants.
Well, I was interested in the priority, and I can talk to you separately, but the priority list in the attachments that have been sent out, and I think some of those ideas are great, like the bike trails or the public ice skating, I think, or a dog park in there, you know, but I think there's a lot of really great things that can be done through those grants. But I was surprised to hear that Renegade Riders, when they came in here, and right, they said, you know, we're funding 100% of the cost, but being at an EDC meeting and hearing that there was a substantial cost and time and energy and effort from the county, but also, I guess I'd want to know more about what their match is, how much they're paying towards that.
Right. We are not supplementing any of their money. We are taking their investment and using it as match. At least is what I'd like to do. I've met with them. I've met with the Stony Creek Ranch. Whether it goes forward or not, I don't know. And being able to use their funds to increase the project to a point where it is then usable. It's heavier rail. It's got 2 switches. It's a full siding that operations of Saratoga North Creek or whoever can use that as a full siding rather than just a stub for a dedicated single purpose. And I've been talking with Justin, and I need to get with Jeff Tennyson, but there are some issues on the rail line itself that may need to be addressed, and if there's overage on their match, maybe we can help offset some of that, like redecking the trestle and Hadley, which the FRA says needs to be done at some point in the not too distant future. So those are the things that we look at and say, you know, it's investment in the publicly owned side of things. We do not use the funds on private property.
Did you have your hand up, Supervisor Bramer?
Yes,
I
thank you.
thought you did, yes.
Yes, that was one of my questions that I was thinking about. Have you talked to Justin? Have you talked to Jeff? Like, are these things that we as a county can actually use, and that, you know, our operator right now is Saratoga North Creek. Are they gonna utilize this? How will they, does this benefit them?
Yes, it
Cause
does.
they're our only operator.
Right, Justin and I have been in discussion.
And are they matching anything?
That's part of the discussion, yet they will hopefully provide, they're already on the hook for $400,000 worth of match in the previous grant. So hopefully, as part of that $400,000 requirement, they will provide all the engineering services for this runaround, the siting. And, you know.
Cause, you know, again, I'm gonna say, Renegade Rail Riders is not in our first wilderness plan. I mean, maybe upgrades to the infrastructure is in
Right.
there, but these people, we don't even have our contract with them yet, and they wanna do, you know, we don't know how they're gonna fare, so I wanna see that it's for more than just those,
Well, right.
that entity.
And that was the whole purpose, was to take something that was single-use specific and make it available and make it product infrastructure that is usable by Warren County and the rail line, not just for a rail bike operation.
Any further discussion? I believe we have a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor? Nay? Carried.
Thank you.
One more item, please.
The next item is a resolution to submit a grant application to the Affordable Housing Corporation, or Housing Trust Fund, whatever they're called these days. And I'm gonna be very frank about this. We're keeping our options open. We have not done a housing program in a while, because we've not been successful in submitting applications. The background information that's necessary to support one of these, we really don't have, and EDC had done some housing analysis as part of their HUD-funded program. We're gonna take a look at that and see if it'll support an application. I quite frankly, I'd like to keep our options open, but it's about a 10% chance that we have the staff time and the resources to put this together. So if you don't want us to do it, we don't need to take this any further, but I just kind of thought we'd keep our options open, and if we can put something together that we feel is competitive, then, you know, we at least, the door is open to do that.
Supervisor Montesson.
Wayne, is this the program that Queensbury does pretty well with?
Yes, yes, they've kind of revamped at the state level how they're doing it, and they almost went to the CFA type, where they lumped all the housing programs in one funding round, and you submit and you don't know who's gonna fund you, but.
Well, I mean, I know with Queensbury, we've had a consultant actually helping us, and as you pointed out, you know, you don't know whether you have enough staff to handle it, and it's an onerous task getting all of the information, and then you gotta select out of a group which ones you're gonna do. But it is a wonderful program in terms of some of the houses that we've refurbished in Queensbury.
Right. We've done in the past, you know, 30 some odd years, we've done almost 2,000 units of housing rehab, but we have not had funding for the past 5 years. So we just ran the programs out that we had and finalized them and closed them out. And at the county level, you know, we really haven't been that competitive in their scoring system. So, you know, as I said, I'm putting this out there really to keep the option open. If you know, if something does materialize, but I don't have high prospect that we're actually gonna be able to put something together.
Supervisor Stroud.
Again, this is just to apply.
Yes.
Just like the last one, just to apply for it. Now, are you gonna do this, Wayne, or would you have somebody like we do, have shelter planning assess this for us?
We do it internally.
You do it internally?
Yeah, Pat would probably be the one working on it.
All right, okay. And, if we don't get it, we don't get it. If we do get it, then it's a good thing.
Then it's a headache of administration.
Did Supervisor Leggett have something, or?
Yeah, Ben,
Go ahead,
thank
yes.
you, Mr. Chairman.
on here, maximum award is $35,000 per unit,
Yes.
so,
Under that one program, yes.
under that one program. If you put it in a grant application for doing, say, a smart home, energy efficient, starter home package, would that fall under this type of?
This is not for new construction.
I
Not
thought-
what we're looking at.
Okay, so even though it's an eligible activity, you're not looking at
Right,
new construction?
we are looking at housing rehab, simply because, we have done, new construction in the past. They give you 10% administrative money, and that is nowhere near enough to do, new construction. Just,
Supervisor Seaver?
Supervisor Strauss just asked you, this is just to apply, just like the grant before, but it's my understanding that once we give a resolution to apply for a grant, we aren't coming back to the board asking the board to make a resolution to accept the grant, or am I incorrect?
no, we come back, and if we're funded, we come back and we say, we've been funded.
Right.
Do you wanna set up the funds, the account to manage this? That's when the county, and the county hasn't passed it, no, we wanna give the money back.
So you'll come back to us and say, okay, it's been accepted, but
Yeah.
at that point, there's no change or anything, it's accept the grant as is, or don't?
Correct.
So it's take all or nothing?
Correct.
Okay.
We have a motion to go forward with this. Supervisor Simpson, seconded by Supervisor Montesi. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried.
What I would like to do at this time, Mr. Chairman, if I may, is, kind of cycle back to the office staffing chart. I don't know how well it actually copies, probably does look pretty good, but, okay. There are, Glenda's been with us for 13 years. Other than that, Pat, Marty, and I all of us have been here for at least 30 years or 35 plus. In the next couple of years, we're all gonna be gone. And so, some sooner than others. So, my whole point here is I'm trying to put together a succession plan such that we don't just walk out the door and I'm not gonna leave the county high and dry. I'm not gonna walk out the door without the resources there to manage the programs that we have. So what I'd like to do at this point is request, consideration of, creating and funding a senior planner position in the department. We can offset some of that with grant funds. I can't tell you how much right at the moment. But I'd like to, fill that, and that person would eventually replace Pat, who will be gone at the end of this year, all right? And next year, about this time, I'd like to then create, and fill the assistant director position, and that person, a year after that or so, would replace me. So, I would ask for the committee's consideration. Back in 2008, when the budget issues hit, we had 8 full-time people. We now have 2 full-time people. And that needs to get back up. I mean, we're just closing out programs from 2007. I mean, that should have been closed out 3 years ago, but, we're trying to catch up, and I need help. I'm being very honest. There's just gotten to the point where we're not doing the service to the county that we should.
Do you think it would be possible, Wayne, to, just a suggestion to maybe come back at the next meeting with maybe, something a little more specific in terms of dollars and cents?
Well,
or is...
The senior planner position is $42,837 according to the county's, grade system. So whatever the benefits would be, that's dependent on who would be hired as to, what kind of, fringe, benefits they would be eligible for. I mean, I can certainly do whatever you want, but, I think it's time that we start looking at this and be proactive. We can meeting this to death, or we can do something, so.
Supervisor Leggett.
Wayne, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You're looking to staff this starting January 1st, let's say, in the next budget year?
I would like this person to start as soon as possible. We've got stuff that should have been submitted to the state a year ago for reimbursement, and it's not there yet. So, it's just, we don't have the staff time to do it. And, you know, we have other things that have other deadlines that we have to meet, so contractual requirements.
Supervisor Wood.
I'm in full support of moving forward with this. This is a conversation that Wayne and I have had, we won't count how many times over the last couple of years. This department was once a large department. They have literally brought millions of dollars into the county. They do a tremendous amount of work, not only for the county, but also for the towns. My town has been on the receiving end of a grant that we had gone through the county for, and just because of staffing restrictions, you know, we waited 3 years for any kind of reimbursement, finally have achieved it, very happy that it's there. But I can tell you firsthand, it is extremely agonizing to lay out all that money and have to wait that long for any kind of reimbursement. They are busy all the time, they're always working, they're certainly trying to bring money into all of our communities as well as the county. Succession planning is something we don't do much of here, and what we do, it's not always executed very well. I think it's wise of Wayne to bring it to the committee now. Obviously, he knows his department, he knows what's going on moving forward, and we are talking about millions and millions of dollars in funding for the county, for the towns. There are relationships and contacts that you have to build with the women and minority-owned business requirements and those kind of things now. You need somebody in that office who knows who to call when there's difficulty, who to talk to. There's relationship building, and the other thing is just familiarity with all of the grants. We have a bunch of rounds out in the First Wilderness Corridor. They're all different. Whoever we put in there is going to have to know which one we're talking about, or if we lose track of them, they're going to have to, you know what's out there, be able to close them out. We are getting behind in closing stuff out. We need to keep up before we start accidentally defaulting on some of these things, in which case we're on the hook for a lot of money. So I think it's wise to at least start looking at getting somebody in there as soon as we can, to start getting that training in place. If we're looking at losing all of our full-time employees within the next 2 years, that's something I would be very concerned about.
How much money are you looking for, Wayne?
Well, I would like to have half of the salary for the rest of the year, starting, July 1st, if this goes forward, which would be $21,000. Now, some of that, when we build a grant application, we have to identify specific staff by name and title that are the administrative edge of that. So, right now, there's no senior planner, there's no assistant director or whatever listed under those grant applications. It would involve going back to the state and amending some of those, which they will do, to put staff resources or funding resources into there. So right now, I can't tell you. I mean, we could probably underwrite that by half, but beyond that, I can't.
What would be the appropriate avenue in terms of
Well, I mean,
maybe moving
if the
forward?
committee gives their approval, I think we need to start talking with the budget officer and finance eventually and get the layout of the land. I mean, you're not gonna hire an assistant planner for peanuts, because, these folks who work privately make decent money. And I gotta echo what Evelyn says, I don't think a lot of folks, unless you deal with the planning department on an everyday basis, realize how well they do. Some of the towns we work in conjunction, but when we have a grant, they're the go-to people. When we have, let's face it, 2007, working with Dave Decker, we're finally getting paid for a grant in 2007 working with Dave Decker. It's easy to pick up the phone, the expertise. The other thing I will say too is the way they're respected in the Department of State is adds a lot to Warren County. And the people we deal with at the Department of State, when they're dealing with Wayne, they have a very good rapport. So the more we can do earlier to get people on board, hopefully they'll work out to bolster that department. I think it's the right thing to do. I really do.
I'd like to lend my full support to this. I think this is absolutely critical for a lot of the towns. There's millions of dollars on the table here, and there's dollars that we're not going after also. And, it's common sense, I think. I can assure you that an assistant director will be in the 2017 budget.
Okay. John, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Your hand was up, yeah.
Yeah, Wayne, I can share your commiseration. And the new grants require a lot more in the terms of compliance than the old, good old days. They're very specific, they have to be digitalized, they have to fit in certain categories. You have to have a person that understands grants and compliance these days. The old days are gone.
Yes, they are, unfortunately.
And if you don't stay compliant, I mean, right now they're being a little bit lenient with us and with Dave Decker and the Lake George Watershed Coalition. But we're looking at hiring somebody. And there is some reimbursement for the people that administrate these grants. And Department of State is allowing 15% for some of the grants. And up to a certain dollar amount per grant. So we're gonna get some reimbursement for this person's efforts.
Yes.
And I can easily see, not only for the reason that you give to somebody to replace you when you retire for continuance, but you need people right now.
Absolutely.
So I support it.
Great. Supervisor Montesi?
You want a resolution to this?
Yes, I do.
So the resolution would read something that we would be hiring as of July 1st, a senior planner of a salary of approximately $42,000. And so it would be, the budget officer is gonna have to anticipate 21,000 additional expenses. I'll move that if that's
Great.
enough.
Supervisor Montesi, seconded by Supervisor Wood. Yes, Wayne.
Just to clarify, in the county's structure, the senior planner is a grade 18. It is in the county's organizational structure. That's kind of why we looked at that. It's already there. I'd like to have that position added to the table of organization for the planning department.
Procedurally, we take action, and where would it go next?
Personnel finance.
Personnel, okay. Very good. So we didn't committee this to death, but thank you for the discussion, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Carried?
And I believe that's all I have, unless somebody has some questions for me.
I just have a quick question, and it's just maybe out of lack of knowledge. You know, I think a good discussion as it related to Stony Creek, and I just posed this question because I don't know. Again, would there be any value for the community themselves to at least be on the public record in writing with a resolution supporting exactly what the county is doing, or to it would seem to me it would be helpful.
Yeah. We always include a letter from the community for support.
Yeah, anytime a town, or you go for a grant, you always gotta, first off, if it's done through a county, you gotta establish a capital account. So that procedure, we do that at a town level.
So that's been done.
It goes to town level and then comes to the county, and he has to put it in his packet. I mean, we have several on the hopper right now in Warrensburg, working through that right now. And usually the towns, and maybe Frank's community, will provide some in-kind service to this grant too in the future if they need help.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about 600 feet of a switchback track, right?
Yeah.
There's 600 feet of, that the railroad could use for bring cars down and send them off on siding or something. It's just more than, I guess, the little carts.
Yeah, yeah. And that may not even go forward if
Yeah, that's right.
If the private investment doesn't come forward.
Right.
So it's just one of the things that we're looking at.
What are the other things?
The town of Corinth has some projects that they want to bring forward. We work with them under the intermunicipal agreement as part of the First Wilderness Program. North Creek has some continuing projects for Main Street work. I've got to talk to the town of Chester yet. Town of Stony Creek, we're looking at potentially doing some feasibility studies to talk about water sewer for the Hamlet area. So those are some of the things that we're in discussion with the communities. I know Lake Luzerne will probably have something coming forward. We're in the process of doing some sidewalks there, Main Street work. They may continue that. So right now, we have about $6.9 million in grant funds that, is funding 39 separate projects that are in various stages. And I need help keeping track of them.
Okay. Claudia?
But as for this grant application process that's in the hopper right now, I mean, are we submitting several different applications for different projects? And do they, I think the answer is yes, and do they compete with each other, or are they looked at each?
It's one application with multiple projects.
Okay.
And can I just chime in too? I think Wayne hit on an important thing. Sometimes you apply for $30,000 to study what you want to do next. And that's the way the state has looked favorably on Warren County, because numerous communities got $30,000 to write up a grant to improve their sewer system, or to improve their park system or something like that. So that it's not all the big ticket items you'll see buried in this grant. You may see some $30,000 projects to get the planning done, and then for the following year, once you're successful with that, then you go after the big ticket item. I've seen that in the history. I mean, and we did expand First Wilderness to hit all these fringe communities. Like Chestertown was never part of it until this year, and so I just got to say this is important.
Supervisor Merlino.
Just to bring a lot of people up to, and Wayne mentioned it, we got a grant for $60,000 through sidewalks to Adjournment. It's a matching grant for the town of Adjournment. We don't have to come up with $60,000. All my employees are putting sidewalks in now. It's about halfway done. So that's our match to this, and that's how we pay them back for the work that they've done for us. A lot of these grants are not just free. Most of the towns have to put some money, I had a grant 5 years ago, $400,000, the county got $50,000 out of that to keep an eye on how we spent it and how it was going. So that's how those grants work.
And that $50,000 was not enough.
Well, working with me, it wasn't.
That's right.
It is Stony Creek, right? Just go ahead, yes.
I can only speak for Stony Creek. We utilize the Warren County Planning Department because I don't have a planner sitting in the background waiting for a project and couldn't afford to pay them either. So we utilize Warren County. We've gotten several grants through the planning department, through the first grants. They're all 50%, half the state, half town funds. We use match, we use good workforce, in kind, money, all kinds of items to make up that 50%. We've gotten, $220,000 for a trail system that is nearly complete. We got another $40,000 for the Creek Center, which is, I don't know where the bench is in the creek. Intersection, a four-way intersection. And a quarter of that the town owns. And, we got $40,000 to revamp that. We also finagled some money for our, the Stony Creek Free Library through the town. So, they put in the community center for the church that we closed down. That's without the water and sewer, that's probably not gonna move forward, but, without Warren County planning, we've got difficulties. At one time, I did receive a $25,000 grant from DEC for a smart growth grant to study the Hamlet revitalization grant. Now, I did that myself, I didn't go through. But I don't have time to write grants, and I'm not all that good at it anyway, so Warren County's what we got.
The end of the day, it's all about economic activity, one way or the other, okay? If we're fortunate enough to get this grant and this happens at Stony Creek, one way or another, it generates economic activity, which may result in extra sales tax for the county, yada, yada, yada. So it's, certainly of value here. Claudia, one more time.
Okay, yeah. No, I think that's great, and certainly, we have the intermunicipal agreement, whatever, so that you can utilize that planning department. I would just like to see our county application include things that would have more direct benefit to the entire county, aside from a sales tax generated in Stony Creek. If there's some element that we can add to make it more a county-wide project, that, I think that would enhance our application. Ask Ed, see what he thinks.
Supervisor Wood.
I would argue that by putting people back to work and getting them off the social services roll, we are doing the county a favor.
Good, we've had
That's the last word.
an enlightened discussion. Is that, you may have gotten the last shot here. Any further discussion? Can we have a motion to adjourn?
Do we need Ed?
Super,
We have Ed and Bartholomew.
I'm sorry.
Ed Bartholomew for the EDC
Oh,
portion.
Ed, I'm sorry, I almost
Oh, forget
adjourned
Ed.
you.
What about Ed?
You're not easy to adjourn, you know?
We're not having that. It's the deal with it.
Frank, I wanna get up there and see
Why,
that
we have a
rock
contract
star.
now? Oh, and a
I know it, I'm like.
I haven't seen it.
Brooks Center, yeah. Stony Brook.
His turn. I'll be right back.
Just a funny.
Good morning. Just a couple of items continuing on the economic development path here. While the process seems to be easier in grant applications in terms of being able to go online and scan and get everything in, that's the wonderful part. The difficulty is the continuing rules and regulations that are being developed, whether it's a federal or state grant, and the administrative paperwork that is now required. You really have to think 3 or 4 times whether or not you're going to apply, be successful, and then finally decide if you've got the capacity to take some of these grants. And so I think that regional grants are getting more significance. I think the way the county of Wayne and Patricia, you have a in-house housing expert with Patricia Cash, who has been here since the beginning of time, but she is a renowned expert in housing and is well known. Wayne is accomplished as well, so you take advantage of Patricia when you have a chance here, as well as with Wayne. But what we try to do at EDC is to be helpful, to assist Wayne and Patricia in terms of letters of support. They have individual letters of support, and we also try to do some individual grants outside the scope of the county. As one example is that we, through EDC, obtained a regional risk assessment grant of $750,000 that is examining potential sites that have petroleum or hazardous materials such as asbestos or lead in houses. As an example, we are working with the supervisor from Chester that we started with Fred on in terms of a piece of property that may be converted into use by the town's neighboring businesses. So a risk assessment is being done on that piece of property once we can get the sign off from the property owner to do that. But that's a savings to the community of about $7,000 to $10,000. We're doing that on a regional basis with the town of Corinth and Hadley, as well as in Hudson Falls and Monroe, and in the city of Glens Falls. It had to be a regional approach. We had to identify certain communities in the area which we are proceeding on. In light of that, we did apply EDC and have received a second round of a job training grant for the region for Warren County that will be commencing in this fall. It's another round of $200,000 that will be open for unemployed and underemployed residents in Warren County. We again will have the training sessions up at the Plumbers and Steamfitters, Local 773. That was announced a couple of weeks ago, and we will be up and running at the end of August for the first-time homebuyers program, which will include a small start of 5 homes outside the city of Glens Falls in Warren County that people will be available to apply for and receive first-time homebuyers. If we're successful with that, I think that we can get back to expanding the program, which you did have several years ago, as Wayne reminded me at our last meeting. So I think that we can build grant capacity and activities in a number of different ways. So those are 2 areas of where we've taken a grant for the EPA that is a regional grant for Warren County, as well as the first-time homebuyer program of having 5 slots for outside the town of outside the city of Glens Falls in that area. One other item I would like to bring up is that earlier we had mentioned a few months ago the possibility of one or two independent films that are looking to film in Warren County. One group came up earlier this year and looked at sites at Lake George, particularly the courthouse, looked at the shirt factory site. It is a film that is going to be set in the 1920s and 30s. We had discovered that through a glitch in Albany. I know that's a rare occurrence, but Warren, Washington, Rensselaer, and Saratoga County were not included in certain film tax credits. All of the surrounding areas were included, and that's the first question the film company asked when they were here. And I said that we're working on that. Senator Little and Senator Marchion have introduced legislation in Albany, and in the Assembly, Dan Steck and Kerry Warner have introduced legislation that would permit a tax credit up to 10% for film production and post-production credits. And right now, as I said, all of the surrounding counties, all the way down to Albany, to Broome County, all the way out west, have that except us. It does put us at a disadvantage. There is no local cost or impact other than being a positive impact of getting this legislation passed. And Senator Little is working hard to accomplish that this year. So that would be helpful. I had a brief conversation with Patricia yesterday, and we utilized the county tourism department, Gene, in setting up some of those locations, and you were helpful in getting us in over to location in Luzerne. So I think that what we would like to try to do is sit down and talk with Supervisor Merlino as well as your planning department and see how we can coordinate a little bit more better effort in our effort to attract some films or TV items. We've had some minor films. The minimal amount of a film has to be at least $500,000. So this tax credit is not going to be available to Mr. Beatty taking a short movie over the weekend or something like that. It has to be at least $500,000 in order to qualify for a tax credit there. So I think that's another little important link, but it's interesting on how these film and the other group that had called us and has been up and looked at some areas here are well aware of all these film tax credits. So it's important that we at least stay competitive in this business. We have some great scenery out there, as we all know, and we want to be able to take a little bit more advantage of that as well as other.
Supervisor Beatty.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. Thanks, Mr. Bartholomew. First question is, so where are we with these independent? Obviously, their first question is, do they get the 10% tax credit?
Right.
And the obvious answer is
the
no.
decision by this fall.
Okay.
Their intent would be is to start filming this fall. So they have given us a litany of items, such as things beginning with they're going to be looking for some actors and actresses for small,
Did you give them my name?
Well,
thank you. Thank you.
Correct. There's speaking parts and non-speaking parts.
I
gotta earn your speaking part.
Supervisor Montesi.
I'm not quite done yet.
Oh,
but I
I'm
had a
sorry,
second
I'm
part.
sorry.
Thank you.
So we're putting together this litany of locations, of lodging, becomes important, and if the more people they can get, and some technical people that they can get locally, that's fine. If not, we have to provide more lodging.
Did they give you a number of how many people they would be bringing in? Just, and I know.
25 to 30 people.
25 to 30 people.
And then
they'd be
that
bringing
means
in.
probably 30 to 40 people locally. There's such things as automobiles and catering and things like that that we just have now got the list to do.
Okay, all right, well, that sounds very promising, okay.
And
President.
how did we get excluded on that tax thing? It's the mysteries of late night legislation, Mr. Montesi, that it just was it was an oversight, it was not there. To the point that Dan Speck brings up when he weighed the bills at 3 o'clock in the morning and said, anybody has read these? Some of these bills get through that way, unfortunately, but it's right there. It lists 15 other counties, from Albany to.
Oh, but not the whole state.
No, this is principally, this was set up as a upstate, undertaking. Now, what's happened now is because of Senator Little's legislation, there is some legislators from the Hudson Valley area, that are incorporating in their bill. So there's a little bit of a duel, in the Senate over which piece is gonna go forward with it. Our piece is included in the piece in Dutchess, County and Putnam. But again, the senator feels that this legislation was crafted to be really kind of a north country, spanning, the thruway all the way to Buffalo and north, not necessarily a statewide. There are some other tax movie TV, credits that are available, in New York City that are a little bit different than up here.
Thank you.
Supervisor Simpson.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. We actually had one of these films, produced in Adirondack. I think you were probably contacted, I referred them to you for a showing. So they are happening.
So in Adirondack, in the town of Corrigan, there's a setting of a romantic movie, of all places.
Centered around the store.
Very good. Well, I'm looking forward
I don't know
to
the name of
Supervisor Beatty and your, participation.
Yeah, well, I'm looking for a leading role in that, but that's a side issue. I've got another question on a different topic. You said we were looking to do round 2 of the job training with the, 773 local. Now, the first one, do you have the, percentage on how many found jobs from that?
Out of the
first one?
53 graduates, 29, found, work.
Okay.
And these individuals were unemployed or underemployed. We have to do, annual reporting for a period of, talk about follow-up, we have to do an annual follow-up on these folks for 5 years. And find out where they will go. And the places they've gone was from, paper mills to, engineering, firms, to, some consulting, firms, to, other businesses, such as hospitals and other, businesses require, workers to have a thorough understanding of ASWAP and ASMAP, training, so that they can identify, if there is something on the floor, they can undertake and have the ability to identify and call the appropriate, response.
Thanks.
Any further discussion? All set? Council, all set? Yeah, good. Good. Can we have a motion to adjourn? Supervisor McDonald, seconded by Supervisor Montesi. Thank you very much.
Let me know.